We will defend Azeroth together. Once more, Dalaran is called to the aid of our world. Magni?
Azeroth showed me a vision of a city in flames in the ancient lands of Kaz Algar. Her voice was desperate. We must act quickly.
Archmage Drendon has proposed, and the Council agrees, that we bring the full force of Dalaran to this Kaz Algar. Make ready, our people, and prepare the city for teleportation. Whatever lies ahead, we will face it together.
You have entered the Solo Queue, a monthly podcast about adventuring alone in the world of Warcraft. Thanks for joining me. My name is Dave Gagne. Welcome to the August edition of Solo Queue, a monthly podcast about adventuring alone in the world of Warcraft. This is episode 13. We are back to monthly episodes after the recent interview episode and part 2 of how to start playing World of Warcraft in 2024. There was great interest in that episode that I published last week, part 2 of how to start playing WoW in 2024. Both part 1 that was released in May and part 2 are among the most downloaded episodes I have. I'm surprised and excited about that. If you originally checked in for that primer on Warcraft, I hope you're here for this regular monthly installment of the podcast and welcome aboard. This is definitely the launch episode for The War Within. Timing is absolutely tight. It is hard to stop running around The War Within and stop playing and try to get an episode out today. It is Sunday before Monday's launch. I'm not sure when this podcast episode will get posted, but we will see. And try like heck to get it out tonight. Get it into your earbuds Monday morning while you are slaving away at the quarry or whatever job you have in the real world while waiting for that full launch on August 26th. Or maybe you've been in early release and you've been running around and appreciating The War Within. I hope you've been enjoying it. I did get into the early access. I have loved everything I've done. I have not done nearly enough, but I'm anxious to get back in there. On the show today, we will have news related to the launch of The War Within, including the schedule of all the different stages, when Dungeons and Mythic Plus and raiding and all of that stuff gets laid out. So we'll lay out the next couple of weeks. I'm going to give you my thoughts on the 2 recent events in Warcraft, the Mists of Pandaria remix and the pre-patch event that we just are concluding tomorrow with the launch. There's going to be some spoiler-free discussion of the initial story and some of the gameplay from my time playing in early access. I'm not going to give away any story, but certainly can, give you my opinion on how things are going, what things look like in The War Within. Spoilers, it is very positive so far. There you go. It's the only spoiler I'm going to give. And I do have a bit of an unplanned solo adventure during my gameplay that I will share with you towards the end, and we'll finish off with a not raid of the month, but a little bit of raid talk anyway. That's what's coming up. Stay tuned. But before I start, I have 2 two special thank yous to put out into the world. I know I mentioned this last week, but it not being a regular episode, I did want to mention this again. I want to thank Wooly and Gershom of the Thrall's Balls podcast for having me on last week. Last week's episode, it was a kind of an interview and a little bit of guest hosting, and I had a ton of fun. It was fantastic. Great to sit down with them and just talk about WoW and all the things that came up and all the different directions we were going in. That was a lot of fun. That was a very different approach to podcasting than I do, so that was a new skill for me to kind of just roll with it live and go for it. So Willie and Gershom, thanks for having me on. Of course, Gershom was the interview subject of episode 4 when we did our first How Do You Solo interview, and I've mentioned it before, but I'm grateful to her for being first WoW content provider to really reach out and say hello and support what I'm doing here, and that was really awesome. And in a similar vein, I have to give a big thank you to a very special super fan, Phoebe, who is a real life friend and one of the very few in-person friends who actually listen to the show. So someone that I see regularly who actually gives it a listen, and that's been fantastic. It is, podcasting at its basic, level is me in a basement staring at my 3 computer screens and talking into a microphone all by myself. It is really nice to have a real person tell you that they like the things that you are, creating for an invisible audience. So, yeah, Phoebe's been my not so invisible member of the audience, and that's been awesome to have her. Phoebe's heading off on a new adventure in life, and I hope that goes super well, and hopefully she'll bring Solo Q with her.
I am honored. You have my gratitude.
Okay, let's get into the news.
You bring news?
What news from the mainland?
Have you any news?
First up, Mists of Pandaria Remix ended recently. I saw a lot of good feedback about this. I think this event was a success. On the whole, Blizzard trying something different. This came on the heels of Plunderstorm, another attempt for Blizzard doing something different within the game, within the Warcraft IP. I had a great time. I didn't play probably as much as I wanted to, but I did get in there. I did get 2 characters to level 70, and I got another one just to level 20. At some point, I just started running out of time. I think the one thing for me is I think it actually got too easy towards, maybe not towards the end, but I think things actually got so easy it was a little bit boring. And I guess even coming from someone who does old raid content, which is just as easy, running around the old world as a level, 70, as a whatever max level character, rolling over level 30, level 40 stuff, it's not a challenge. But I think something about running in a raid, plowing through trash, killing 8 or 9 bosses, all within, basically as fast as you can run. Okay, that's fine. It got to the point in Mists, in the remix, where the entire outside world was like that, and yet I'm doing questing, and I guess it's kind of hard to take the questing seriously, and it's hard, frankly, it got hard to even read the quests, and, and I loved, every time I've gone through the Mists expansion to level, I was not in it when it was current, but all the times I've done stuff in Mists, I've loved it. I love the questing. I started to feel bad because I wasn't paying attention, and it was just, oh, yep, click, accept, go yeah, I just want to get to the end. Need to get another zone done. I want to get all the things. That was my one downside. I feel like if there was still just a little bit more challenge, maybe, I don't know how you actually make that, but the other thing I had, and this is just super me, this is not a criticism of any choice of Blizzard's, but I wanted I wanted all of the stuff. And the reason I want all of the stuff is because I didn't want to have to think about it. I didn't want to have I think in the end, I probably ended up with, I don't know, I probably earned 300,000 to 400,000 bronze, which is not anything actually amazing. I mean, I did not upgrade a single piece of gear. That seemed like a waste of time, waste of bronze. So I just focused on buying things. I bought all the mounts that I didn't have, so that made me happy. And then toys I didn't really care about, so it was appearances, and I wanted to get appearances, but I didn't really want to have to go through and decide which appearances I wanted and which I didn't. So I kind of hoped to just get hundreds and hundreds of thousands of bronze. That way I could buy all that out and not think about it. And that didn't happen. I ended up, just getting busy and not playing enough. And so there I am on the last day of Remix, literally like 1 hour to go before the reset, and I'm shopping. I hate shopping. I hate shopping in real life, and this felt like shopping. And here I am in game looking up. Do I like this appearance? Do I like it in brown? How about blue? All right, let's look at the next one. Do I like this appearance? And oh my God, that took forever. And, so in the end, I bought a bunch of stuff. This looks kind of good. All right, fine, whatever. So I've got, I don't know, an hour of WoW time in my life that was just me shopping. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is. That's clearly just me not liking. It's all or nothing. That was kind of what I wanted, and I didn't get the all. So, and I didn't want nothing. I didn't want to just throw my bronze back. That would be silly. I worked hard to get it. So, shopping. I think I, just like in real life, would pay someone to shop. I would have paid someone to go through those appearances and shop for me, but oh well. I had this thought, and I don't know if this will make sense. I think it made sense the other day when I thought of it, and I'm not sure it still makes sense in my head, but WoW Remix, the Miss Remix was kind of WoW in a nutshell. It wasn't 3 months. How long was it? 10 weeks? Something like that. It was a good amount of time, but finite amount of time, a massive amount of stuff to do. I think a lot of people would call it too much stuff to do, but we know that in WoW, that is not true for everybody. There are people who can play the heck out of this game. And so, yeah, some people do it all. Some people had bought out all the vendors, within a couple of weeks because they have the time and they go hard, and that's great. And then other people didn't get even close to what they wanted. I'm kind of in that group, although I don't think I'm not living and dying by it. Some people do everything, many do not. Some people regret that they don't get to everything. Some people have a more laissez-faire attitude and don't care as much. Some people thought that Remix was too long. Some people thought it was too short, too fast, too slow, too easy, too hard. The opinions are entirely across the board. And I think ultimately most reasonable people agree, most reasonable players agree that Remix was a pretty good thing. But it kind of gives you the idea, everybody has their opinion. Opinions are all across the board, and ultimately all of us have our own, whether or not we're blasting it out on Twitter or we're just droning on about it in a podcast. We all have an opinion, and it kind of makes you appreciate how hard it is for Blizzard to try and please everybody across the board. Like, it's just not going to happen. So that felt like an expansion in a nutshell in some ways, that tiny little microcosm. Last thing I'll say about it, everybody all over the place is now saying, okay, what's next? What's the next expansion that's going to be remixed? And I don't have an answer. I don't even have a guess. I don't even really have a care. I think if they put the same amount of time and effort and, kind of go on a similar idea, I think whatever they work on will be pretty cool. I think the timing was perfect. It's a good complement to a final season of an expansion. If, in the case of these season 4s, which are just kind of mashups and nothing new and kind of reworking, biding time almost while they're doing the final push on the next expansion, I think this was a good complement to that. And maybe even, I don't play seasons like most people do. I wonder if people think season 4 suffered because maybe the energy went into remix. I don't know. I assume they're different teams on Team 2. I assume that's different groups of people. So it's not necessarily, no one's in the season 4 office working. Everyone's down the hall having fun on remix. So it would be interesting to see if they take that and iterate on it next time around. And I assume that'll be, a year and a half at least from now or so. All right. Next thing in the news, pre-patch. The big pre-patch event, if you remember, I know things move quickly, but if you remember, this thing hit like a lead balloon. It was terrible. And I don't like to say that much about the game, but I even twittered out that, this is not fun. If you remember in the beginning, the way it was structured, when the event started, a bunch of things happened, and then you killed the boss, and then that was it until basically the next one came on. And at the time, it was 90 minutes. And if you weren't in the zone by like 5 minutes past the hour, you didn't get anything. The boss was dead. Those bosses were falling so fast. And, I remember I was at the beginning on the clock, I was good, but you finish and you're like, oh, it's 7 minutes after this started. Holy cow. So you have 83 minutes of nothing. It was bad. And then they changed it. Blizzard quickly reacted. With the speed that you think, wait, what? Why did you think it was going to be good when it went out? But hey, I don't make video games, and I give them a lot of credit for making those changes, because in the end, not even in the end, even after the first few days, the event really settled in, and I think it was great. Too easy. I level a lot of characters. I think I leveled 17 characters up to level 70 just in the pre-patch. And the speed at which people were able to level, I think it almost felt bad, other than I'm just greedy and want to get that done. It's a pretty big shortcut. I think even a bigger shortcut than Legion, and I don't have numbers for that, but the Legion pre-patch was really fast, and I think you could actually do it without doing anything, and that wasn't quite the case here. I mean, you had to at least tag bosses and get in and be in the area to collect the benefits of each of the mini bosses and then the boss at the end. But the beauty of this was, as soon as that boss, the big boss, was dead, you just went back to the other phase and you just started running around going to the little mini events. And yeah, I know that some of them were good and some of them were bad and some of them never got played, but that's always going to be. They can't all be equally perfectly fine and good. So I think that event the pre-patch event worked. I liked it. 17 characters. I did one from 30 to 70 in just a couple of hours. The rest of them were from somewhere in the 50s or 60s. And yeah, let's see, if I did 17 and the average was probably about an hour other than the long one. So I didn't even spend 20 hours in it and got that many characters. Got a lot of levels this month. I actually keep track of how many levels I have over all of my characters. I think in the last month we gained 199 levels. That's pretty good, but most of that was just cheating. Most of that was, if next month I've gained 199 levels, then yeah, that would be impressive. So I'm going to call that one a success. Next thing, it isn't really news. It's just kind of stuff that's in the news, I guess. Warbands have come. They have mostly been a success, I think. There was a little hiccup with some currency. I know for a fact I lost some currency at some point. Some Radiant Echoes, whatever, it's fine. But there's one thing that I do not like about Warbands, and that is the login screen, which in some ways is sort of the most visible part of this. Really, it's a behind the scenes system, and I think the system's fantastic. I hate the login screen. I hate that there is no organization. And I don't mean the 4 little characters camping out. I think that's cute. I think that's great. I like others, I think it'd be fun if there were other screens, but ultimately it's just a screen. It does nothing for me. I'm not playing this game to stare at my login screen. What I cannot stand is the list of characters to the right, because there is no ability to organize it in an easy way. Yes, I can manually move people up and down that list, but there is no sorting by server. There is no ability to even look at a server of characters. And that drives me crazy. I don't know, and that may be me, and maybe I have to go and organize everybody manually. I don't want to do that. I'm fine with that list being there, but I kind of wish that there was still the old, I could just go to the old list and say, yep, look at my 14 characters on this server and the 4 characters on that one. Nope, can't do it. And that's annoying, and I know that's a super small thing, but in some of the stuff I do, trying to keep track of who's on what server and do a monthly inventory of things, it makes it more hard, and that's weird, and I don't know why all of that had to go away. All right. Otherwise, loving the Warbands. I love that all of a sudden appearances are just shared and earned and learned and all this stuff automatically. The War Bank has been fantastic, other than, slightly losing a little bit of my money. It's fine. All right, let's to the next bit of news. The next bit of news comes to us in the form of a calendar. And it is the calendar of all the things going on in the War Within. As you know, even before early access, the PvP preseason began on August 20th. Somehow before the War Within early access began. So on the 22nd, early access began. If you had the Epic Edition or the Collector's Edition, you were given access to the game on the 22nd of August, at least in my time zone and my continent and part of the world. Normal dungeons have opened up, including follower dungeons. On 8/26, that is tomorrow, the War Within will go live for everybody, 3 p.m. Pacific time. That is 6 p.m. here at Solo Q headquarters on the eastern coast of the United States. You know where you are. You can figure that out from there. I'm sure you can find it. And when the War Within goes live for everybody, it's going to light up the heroic dungeons, so you can now do normal, follower, and heroic. And that will mean the end of, officially, Dragonflight Season 4, PvE, and everything like that. So, finally, all these overlapping deadlines and things and transitions, we will, by the end of tomorrow, end of Monday, we will be fully into the War Within, Patch 11, and a brand new world for the World of Warcraft. On the 10th of September, that is in 2 weeks, the War Within Season 1 will begin with normal and heroic raid difficulty launching, along with Raid Finder Wing 1. If you are a Mythic Plus player, well, you're halfway there. Mythic 0 dungeons are going to launch that day. New world bosses are coming along with the PvP Season 1 and heroic seasonal dungeons. And I don't actually know what heroic seasonal dungeons are. That might be... Nope, I don't know what that is. I'm sorry that I don't. Okay, well, at quick glance, I'm not seeing what seasonal dungeons are, and I apologize if you're dying to find this out, but I don't actually understand the difference. Normal, heroic, mythic 0. Yeah, I'm not sure. You may know. You may already know what that is, but I do not. That is all coming live on Reset Day on September 10th. The following week, on the 17th, Mythic raids will open, so we'll have all the raid difficulties open at that point. Mythic Plus dungeons will open, so no more Mythic Zeros. You can start digging in to Mythic 1s, 2s, all the way up to 10s. Also on the 17th, we have Raid Finder Wing 2 opening up, so the second wing of Nerubar Palace. And Raid Story Mode is going to open up as well. We'll talk a little bit more about Raid Story Mode at the end of this episode. And on the 24th, the following week after that, Raid Finder Wing 3 will be open, and therefore the entire raid will be open at all difficulties, and we will be full bore into it there. So that's the layout. That's the rollout for the War Within. So figure out what content you're doing, put it on your calendar, take a day off from work, and get out there. Recently, we've had a bunch of cinematics. Okay, we had everything kick off, obviously, last November with the cinematic with Thrall and Anduin losing the light and Thrall coming to talk to him. And that was kind of an amazing cinematic. And you know what? I actually, last night, fired up WoW on my laptop for the first time since the game launched. And I've been playing here on my desktop, but finally pulled it up on my laptop. And so whenever you get into either a new install or at least the new expansion, they always play the cinematic first, the most recent cinematic. And, you know, my inclination was, skip the cinematic, let's get to the game. And I thought, no, I'll watch. I haven't watched this in a while. And it's so good. You know, it is so... I don't know, I think it's of a type. Maybe it's because I'm old and feely, but there's a lot of realness in there and a lot of emotion, and I don't mind that. I know that the game is going to give me quests to kill a bunch of badgers and go collect a thing and grind some renown. The game's not going anywhere. It's not changing in that way. But the cinematics can, and the cinematics, you're really fleshing out these characters and making them a lot more real. You know, the one characters they don't flesh out? The Earthen. You're welcome. So, I did watch that, and I enjoyed it. But recently, we've had the Shadows Beneath. That was a few weeks ago. The cinematic kind of introducing us to this Xal'atath, who is no longer just a knife. We had the Threads of Destiny, which focused on the Nerubians and the queen of the Nerubians and the deal that the princess made with Xal'atath. That was followed up by Illyria Light and Shadow, a different cinematic style. If you checked out the Thrall's Balls episode last week that I was on, I literally had not had time to watch that that cinematic during the week. I've been so busy getting ready for school, but while I was on there, while they were talking, I was able to watch it really quickly. And of course, I went back and watched it a couple more times. And it really is fantastic, just bringing us back the story of Illyria and introducing you to her if you haven't either read about her or followed or played through some of the older content. Bringing us in close on one of the other Windrunner sisters and all the dynamics going on there. We also have they also, right before the launch, put out kind of half of the in-game cinematic, or maybe it's kind of the whole. No, I guess it was kind of half, where Xal'atath clearly gets grumpy, and there's our favorite wizard Khadgar, who tries to attack her with a massive blast of arcane energy. And as I recall, the version they put out publicly kind of stopped there, and you don't really know how that ends up. And of course, as you play through, you do find out what happens, and something happens. I told you, this is going to be a no spoiler episode, but something happens. Let's put it that way. I think the cinematics have been great. I think they are just timed perfectly to really rally your excitement and anticipation at just the right moment. And sometimes I always think, don't they do these earlier? When are they coming? When's going? And when they come, you're like, oh yeah, I'm ready to play. And then it's here. Either it was here a couple days ago, or at worst, it's here tomorrow, today. It's definitely today by the time I get this out. So we are closing in on 11 p.m. on the Eastern Seaboard, and my editing is not quick, so this is definitely going to come out on Monday. Cinematics have been fantastic. Definitely check those out. They've also been, as part of the big media push, pumping out some interviews. There have been a couple warcasts, essentially interviews with devs on certain topics to try and explain some things. And if you listen to podcasts, or if you read through their blog posts and notes and things like that, there's really not a lot. I kind of skimmed through those warcasts. And yeah, you're not going to learn much if you've been paying attention. I think they're really kind of like the cinematics. They're aimed at amping up players who aren't doing all that research ahead of time. And in some ways, why would you? Like, if you don't have to, sure, they're going to tell you when the game comes out. So a lot of that information in a different format, video as opposed to blog post or some guy talking to you on a podcast. Check those out if you want some last minute info, of course. There was a slightly different interview, and that was not necessarily game developers and not necessarily specific The War Within topics. This one was with Warcraft franchise head Chris Metzen, I believe creative director of the entire Warcraft franchise now, and of course one of the founders of the Feast here as far as coming up with this Warcraft universe. Chris Metzen has his creativity and his stamp on so many things in this universe. It's hard to separate him from this game, as much as it's made by many hundreds and thousands of people over the years. Some people have a bigger stake in things and cast a long shadow. And it's really exciting that after several years away and doing his own thing, Chris has come back to the Warcraft universe, and I think everything is the better for it. And he was interviewed by somebody else making a bit of a return to World of Warcraft, and that is the famed WoW podcaster, Scott Johnson. It was great to see Scott up there on the stage, the two of them looking like they're forced to do a thing, but I know that they have a genuine friendship, and that really does come through the interview. It's about 23 minutes long. I think it's actually worth watching over some of the Warcasts. Like you'll learn the game, but to hear Chris and Scott dig into what is going on behind the scenes, how Chris's return to Blizzard has been, changes in attitude, and they were spitballing about some stuff and talking about, hey, what do we do about that sword? Well, that's coming, and I believe they were talking about 13.1, 13.2. Like they know patches going out pretty far, but said they're even, and I don't think they're making this up, Chris even mentioned knowing some things as far out as 17, like expansion 16, so 17.0. They've got a storyline out there. They are working towards some things, and that, now that we know the next 3 expansions, it's kind of fascinating to think about, well, yeah, but what else? Like I've already played through these 3 in my mind. What's next? And we're talking like 6 years from now. So great to know that it's out there. I think that's reassuring. And I also think, Metzen also mentioned a faster, more consistent content. That's the goal. And I just wonder if the 2-year patch cycle is going to fade away as a thing of the past. We've already seen Dragonflight as the shortest expansion as far as time it was live. It's the shortest expansion period of all of them. So it's possible that we may not get a full 2 years, kind of like we did with Dragonflight. Maybe they start lopping off a few months out of each 2-year cycle, and before you know it, the trilogy is out in 5 years total instead of what you might think of as 6. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. And last thing in the news that I want to mention, and I kind of just slightly referred to it, but Scott Johnson is back in the World of Warcraft podcast world, and I guess publicly back in the World of Warcraft orbit. I was a huge fan of The Instance. The Instance was the first Warcraft podcast I ever listened to. It remains my favorite. It was fantastic through the years. In the last few years, as they started to pivot away from Warcraft and go Blizzard, kind of all Blizzard games, well, I started to lose a little bit of interest because I don't play other Blizzard games. So not a criticism, but you could tell that they were struggling a little bit. And when all of the crap went down at Blizzard and all of the harassment lawsuits and the bad stuff, it really sounds like Scott was, and publicly, it was, in those last few episodes of The Instance, struggling with his relationship with this game and with this company, really, not with the game as much as the company. And he stepped away and he walked away. I believe that was 2022. I checked my Instance feed, see when the last official episode was, and I kind of thought that was the end of an era. I didn't think that this would come back, and I know Scott is a huge podcasting guy and does a lot of things in a lot of different directions. I listened to his Diary of a Cartoonist podcast. It's pretty good, very personal, little snippets, highly suggested. And lo and behold, The Instance has returned. The Instance 2.0 is the branding, but Scott Johnson is back talking about World of Warcraft. Scott returns to the Warcraft airways with co-host Bobby Frankenberger. So a new pairing, but it is just really exciting to hear. There were some bumpers and things. The town crier, I missed it more than I knew. Just coming back to the old days. So welcome back to Scott and welcome Bobby. Welcome to the monthly WoW podcast market. I kind of warned him on the social medias. It's a pretty vicious market. It's pretty cutthroat. So may the best podcast win. But happy to hear the instance back and excited it is back in my podcast feed.
Let's get down to business.
All right, let's talk about the launch of The War Within. There's something going on. There's a lot going on. And not that I'm going to give the story away, but I want to talk a little bit about the launch and then get into kind of the first zone and share with you some of the things that I experienced and my thoughts on The War Within so far. After you have farmed up all those radiant memories and echoes and what have yous, it is now finally time to meet up with Khadgar and the crew in Dalaran as Magni has finally come back to consciousness, and he announces what his instructions from Azeroth, from the World Soul, were when he was knocked out and was about to tell us where to go. And well, we are going to the land of Khaz-Algar, and we are going to track down this existential threat that we have known briefly as the Harbinger, but really the Harbinger is Xal'atath, and I don't know if that was just the worst kept secret or what. I have no idea why we briefly knew her as the Harbinger, but surprise, Xal'atath. No longer trapped inside of a Legion artifact weapon, Xal'atath was set free during the events of BFA, and she is a powerful being. And she did what some people wish they could have done and skipped Shadowlands. Didn't appear, so we did see her. She originally appeared in Legion as the Shadow Priest's Legion weapon. And if that sounds weird, there's plenty of people out there that'll explain to you the deeper, longer story of Xal'atath. We don't know what she is. She takes different forms. She's very powerful. Maybe she's an old god. Maybe she's a titan. Maybe we'll find out, I guess, is kind of my thought on it. We did, in the raid, if you did the raid, which I did not, but if you did the raid, when you fight N'Zoth, she was released from the knife that she was trapped in. And then she takes I believe a Void Elf form. I could be wrong. Maybe she took a Blood Elf form. I'm not sure. She took the form that we see her plastered all over the media in. So what she looks like now, she took that form and kind of disappeared. Like I said, she could see that Shadowlands wasn't the best expansion. She disappeared. She made a quiet, subtle appearance at the end of one of the Dragonflight raids. I think it was at the Vault of the Incarnates. I think it was at the end of Vault of the Incarnates. I don't think it was Aberrus. I know it wasn't Amir Drasil. So let's just go with that. You can fact check me if you want. So she reappeared very briefly at the end of Vault of the Incarnates when Eridikron handed her the Dark Heart artifact. Now it was all empowered, and I'm not sure if people even saw it when the raid happened, and if it wasn't later when, I guess, Blizzard revealed or the cinematic showed or what have you that it was her. So I actually don't remember. And of course, I didn't see the raid because I wasn't in the raid, so let me in the raid. More on that in a minute. But the empowerment of the Dark Heart has allowed her to interfere with Nerubian politics, as we saw in one of the recent cinematics. And she eventually was able to convince the Nerubians to become her army in Khaz-Algar. Okay? So, for clarity's sake, Khaz-Algar is the general area name for all 4 zones that we're going to visit in The War Within. The Isle of Dorn is the first one, and that is the island on the world map in the ocean where our adventure begins. And that is followed by the Ringing Deeps, Hallowfell, and Azj-Kahet. And Azj-Kahet is the empire of the Nerubians, so that's their zone. While the Isle of Dorn is the conveniently discovered island now appearing on our world map for this expansion, the other three zones are under the surface, perhaps heading towards the World Soul, perhaps heading towards the tip of that sword, or who else knows? Who knows what else is down there? But they are underground. They are below. They are below the Isle of Dorn, and I have not traveled there yet. I did not travel there in the beta, but you can see right in the city of Dornogal, where you kind of start out, that there's a giant hole, and I think the map even says, yep, head down this way. So I haven't leveled that far yet, so I haven't traveled down, and I'm not skipping ahead. So yeah, that hole is just kind of waiting for me. As Khadgar says in the early questing, as you're getting Dalaran ready, it is Archmage Drendon who suggests packing up the magic floating city of the Kirin Tor for a third time and flying it over to Kaz Algar to deal with this threat, this existential threat of Xal'atath and Nerubians running amok. Now, Drendon is a former member of the Council of Six. The Council of Six are the six mages, Magi, Gift of the Magi? Is that a different thing? I think that's a different thing. He's a former member of the Council of Six, and they are the ones who are basically in charge of the Kirin Tor. They make the decisions, including when should we fly this city around? Where should it go next? Which expansion will see us fly the city in? And so, yeah, for the third time, Dalaran is going to float out to the Trouble Zone after having gone to Northrend and later to the Broken Isles in Legion. And it's kind of funny, some of the early questing is like, helping the citizens pack up again, because the last time we flew, everything fell off the walls and what have you. So there's some fun little questing to get you started. Drendon was on the Council of Six, and when Archimonde destroyed Dalaran in the Third War, back when it was still in the ground, Drendon went missing and was presumed dead. And since this is all like Warcraft 3 time, he has never actually been seen in World of Warcraft until patch 10.2.7. And that was that final patch of Dragonflight. I think it came out in May. And that's when you had kind of all the little stories and the tie-ups and the connections, and they started to connect to the War Within. Started to tie up the Emerald Dream and Belemeth and all of that stuff. And when the Harbinger quest line arrived, you might remember we had to go visit Khadgar in Dalaran. And in the room outside, kind of the before you go into the chamber to talk to Khadgar, there's just not a waiting area, it's just outside. We've been running past it this whole week during the pre-patch stuff. Drendon was there having a conversation with Archmage Karlane. And at the time, if you remember, Kalecgos was just stepping down from the Council of Six because he has become the aspect of the Blue Dragonflight. And taking over his flight, that's a lot. So he's no longer on the Council of Six. And Drendon seemed an easy fit. He's a former member. And there was a conversation outside that room. And the text is here. I'll read it. I don't remember if it was voice acted or not, but I've got the text here. So Archmage Karlane, who is another member of the council, says, "It's been too long, Drendon. Glad to see you back in Dalaran." Archmage Drendon says, "It has. I'm grateful the council accepted me back so readily." Archmage Karlane says, Of course, we're always in need of a mage of your talent. And Drendon replies, and I mean to put those talents to good use, you can be sure of that. So this conversation happened back in May for us, and a number of months ago, even in the Warcraft universe. And that's just good to remember as you are diving into this storyline and making your preparations for launching Dalaran diagonally across our world map from the Broken Isles, where it currently is hanging out, to Kaz Algar. And Kaz Algar, as I mentioned, kind of the newest island in this world that fails to find islands, finding them at a regular 2-year pace, it seems. Kaz Algar is kind of the southwest corner of the world map, and it is southeast of the southern tip of Kalimdor, so that left side of the map for you left-righters, which, as a geography and history teacher, I can't stand. So, east and west, southwest corner of the map. All right. It's been a lot of talking. I'm a little parched. I think it's time. Pop into a tavern for a drink.
Interest ya in a pint?
Choose wisely.
And where are we going to get a drink? We are going to stop in at the inn in Freywald Village. Freywald Village is in the southern side of the Isle of Dorn. I think it's the first quest hub area that we go to, although I may have done things out of order. It didn't seem like there was necessarily an order. I think you could have grabbed a quest line to go somewhere else, but anyway. Freywald Village is a good little quest hub. It's south of the big city of Dornagal. And here, I'm going to go with the Cinder Brew Mead. I am not normally a mead man myself, but in honor of the Cinder Brew Meadery, which is the dungeon on the east side of Dorn on the island, I'm going to try out its flagship drink. And it is a fiery, potent brew enjoyed by the Earthen, which seems interesting since the Earthen don't actually eat anything, and I would assume don't drink anything, but they have a meadery that makes mead. And apparently that meadery is under new goblin management, which is probably why we have to go venture over there in groups of 5 to set things straight. So that dungeon is only available at level 80. But in the first zone, the Rookery is a leveling dungeon that is available at level 70, and that actually is right in the city of Dornagal. And I will soon be hopping over there for a follower dungeon. I think my questing should actually take me there pretty soon. I think, not looking ahead, but just judging by the name of something I just grabbed. So I'll get there soon. I'm excited to do dungeons in time. This is going to be great. Freywald Village is it's a great little quest hub. It's, like I said, south of the big city. It's not too far. That said, it's kind of far if you were walking. Like the zone design now is kind of fantastic. Dragon flying, dynamic flying, whatever the heck it's called this week, has expanded the maps, and that's something that I always thought should happen. And it is this very tavern where I sat debating my leveling strategy for the War Within. And it's kind of a big question. I think something that everybody answers on some level themselves. And I kind of had this idea. I kind of thought maybe I should try staying disciplined and focusing only on main story quests, or campaign quests as they're kind of called. And then after I'm done, I'll come back for side quests. I'll come back and do all of what we're now calling local quests, either on this character or on another character, just to get more experience. but I'll do that later. And according to Scuttlebutt on Twitter, this approach, if you just stick to the main story quests, is only going to get you to about level 76. And I thought, okay. And really, it kind of even had me like, why? What's my temptation of focusing? And I guess really it is, okay, let me just stay focused on the story. Let me stick to that main storyline. That way it kind of gets baked into my head a little more clearly. Because I think it is easy in WoW to lose the story. I think sometimes you just start going down these weird rabbit holes of, yep, the world's on fire, but Mary Jane over here needs me to fix the sewing table, and to do that I need to go chop 3 trees down and kill some spiders to get some thread to tie the sticks together to fix the sewing table. And eventually I forget why the world's on fire, or so I think things can get lost. And I thought this was kind of another one of those all or nothing ideas in my head, like no, I want either nothing, meaning no side quests, I'm just going to do the story, I'm going to stick to the story, or I have to do all of it. Like, I have to do all of it. The opposite Scuttlebutt on the Twitter was kind of saying that if you do all the questing, don't skip the local quests, don't skip the side quests, do everything, you hit 80 long before the end of the 4th zone. I think people were hitting it in the 3rd zone. And at first I thought, oh, well, that's not great. That's whatever. But then, wasn't that true in Dragonflight? I mean, certainly it was true in Dragonflight. I still haven't finished a bunch of zones. I think it was true in Shadowlands. I know it was true in Legion. I think it's just true in all expansions that the leveling, it's not perfectly timed. You're not going to finish that last quest and then ding 80. Personally, like I said, I find it hard to pick a middle ground. Like, either I'm going to hit all of the yellow exclamation points or I'm not. I don't need to, again, shop for which ones I want to do, which stories. Oh, but, I figure some of these are connected chains. Do I just stop in the middle of a chain? Like, I don't know. I've got 3 different chains going on. When do whatever. I don't know. I need to go to the next zone. So the sewing table's not going to get fixed. Whatever. Keeping it all together certainly keeps the overarching story fresh in my mind as I'm doing all the side questing. So that's the other side of it, is if I do it all together, at least it feels like I'm in the moment. Like, okay, yes, the world is on fire, the sewing table's broken, but I need to do the sewing table because we need to sew the magic sheets for the bed that will make us all rest and get strong enough to go put the world's fire out. I don't know, like, all of it can make sense. Yes, you could go just put the world's fire out, but it would be better if you did it after you rested in the bed with the magic sheets that were sewn by the sewing table that is currently broken. This is not a spoiler, by the way. As far as I know, there is no sewing table broken quest chains in The War Within, and I will do a massive correction next month if that turns out to be untrue. That would be amazing. I will laugh so hard if I find anything like that. So having the story, being in the story, I think makes more sense for going and doing all of these local stories. And the proof of that is, like I said, I still have a whole bunch of side quests and local stories to do in Dragonflight. That was one of the problems I mentioned a few months ago. Actually, it had to do again with patch 10.2.7. It was the Visage quest, where you were to go around and you had to talk to all of these NPCs about so-and-so's visage and how do you find yourself? How do we define ourselves? And the quest line seemed really good. And the problem was I was talking about it in the show because I couldn't do it. Because they tied that very interesting quest line to having done all of the story quests with those NPCs that you had to interview. And so if you got to an NPC who was involved with a local storyline that you didn't do, you couldn't interview them for this quest line. And so it's all tied together, except I haven't gotten to a bunch of them. That quest is still sitting in my quest log. I have, it's either 1 of 8 or 2 of 8 that I've talked to, and now I'm stuck. So I got to do all the side questing. But you know, when you go back and you're like, okay, I'm going to go back and wrap up all those side quests and punch through and, you know, do the lore master or whatever, it feels really disjointed. You know, like I said, I still have stuff to do in Dragonflight. I think I still do in Shadowlands, BFA as well, for that matter. But when you go back, you're like, what, the sewing table's broken? Okay, what does that have to, whatever. Just give me the, what do you need? Sticks, spider, got it. Here's 10 spiders, here's 3 logs, whatever, do whatever, I'm on to the next one. And you stop paying attention because you're not in that moment anymore. And so I find it really, it's disconnected to the bigger story, and I don't end up paying as much attention. And so, you know, WoW is a big, rich story to some extent, and people like to complain about the storytelling not being great, and, you know, that can be true, but there's a lot of cool side story that's hidden in these local quests. There's a lot of flavor that's in there. And if you go back months or even years later and you're just checkboxing it and plowing through it and, yep, give me every single quest. Okay, great. I've got 8 quests and I'm going to go out into the world and slaughter everything and get them done. You're not getting any of that flavor. You're not taking it in, and therefore the story isn't there for you, and it does suck. And so it's really tough. I don't know. In the end, I gave in. I decided, yep, I'm gonna go click. You know, I am in Freywold Village, and after doing, I think I finished the campaign quests in this area. But before I left, I said, okay, fine. You, what's wrong with your sewing table? You, what's wrong with whatever you got going on? You need a pair of shoes? All right, yep. Whatever, there was like 3 or 4 exclamation points, collected them all, and I didn't force myself, but I was like, yep, no, we're gonna stay in the moment, and we're gonna find out what's going on with these people, get to know them, and do the immersion. And as much as my time in game is super limited, I don't want to rush through just to try and keep up, and so that next month I can say, yep, I've got 7 characters, level to 80, look at me. Nope, I would rather be plugging along and digesting the story in nice small bites and enjoying it than just sprinting as fast as I can. So there's the answer to my question. That's what we got at Freywold Tavern here. I had a good thrashing out of this question, and for me the answer is, yeah, slow down, do the stuff. Yeah, hit 80 when you hit 80, doesn't matter. You know, in some ways, aside from follower dungeons, questing is my end game. I enjoy it, so I don't need to pretend that I need to get raid ready for week 1, what have you. So that's what's going on in this village. I'm going to try and stick to accomplishing all of it, essentially just completing Lore Master as I go, and really try not to distinguish between side quests that I do now and later. I just do them all now. It really is kind of like that Mists of Pandaria decision of, I just want all the things and I don't want to have to decide. Deciding feels like a real world chore, and I don't feel like bringing real world chores into my gaming brain. I don't know. What is it in game that feels like work to you? What parts of Warcraft do you just stay away from because it seems like work?
You sure got a lot of questions.
For me, yeah, I think it's deciding things. So we'll just do it all. We have arrived at the penultimate segment of this episode. And I mentioned in the beginning that I had a very interesting experience where the game actually disconnected, but I was still able to roam around in the world. And that gave me a chance to just see things, look around. I couldn't do anything, so it forced me to just look around and experience the Isle of Dorne. And there's some good description in here, so I hope you'll check it out. This segment's about 18 minutes, and then we'll wrap up with some thoughts on the raids and story mode. See you on the other side. So the game has glitched. I'm playing right now, and there's a very strange glitch in that it's like the world has frozen. I'm still online. I can still run around. I can't change forms. I can't mount. I can't hop into druid form. I can't hop into cat form. So I can't transform, but I can walk around. I can't talk to any NPCs. Other player characters are still there, but they are frozen, doing whatever they were doing last. So there is a shaman in ghost wolf form, just running in place like he's on a treadmill. There are a ton of people mounted, of course. And the mounts are doing their mount specials every now and then. So flapping wings, things are, kind of moving side to side. There was, the big traveling tundra mount is shaking its head and doing its thing. There's a protection paladin who is sitting on the jeweled onyx panther, the jewel crafting mount from Mists of Pandaria. And I don't know what his last button push was, but he is literally going around in circles in place, not, moving anywhere, but literally that panther is just dancing itself in a circle. It's fascinating. It's funny. I did a reload. It's not me, It's definitely on the world server end of things. The game is, just not available, but I can still move around in it. And it hit me like, this is just a glimpse of what a single player WoW game would be. I'm walking around this world. I can go wherever I want. Now I can't really do anything. Like the first hint was I was trying to go talk to Bran Bronzebeard as one of the early quests in Dornagal, and I'm not going to give anything away, but shocking, Bran is someone you have to talk to. And I'm trying to talk to him, and he's giving me his, little snippets of inquiring minds just got to know and whatever else he says. But he's not actually talking to me, and the text bubble doesn't come up and options don't come up. And that's when it hit me, like, wait a minute. No one else is moving. And I probably should quit and come back in. I don't think that will change anything. Maybe they've fixed the state of the game, and if I log out and log back in, the game will be restored. But that seems, I guess from a tech point of view, that could make sense. Part of me thinks it would just come back and the world would refresh itself, but maybe not. But part of me doesn't want to do that. I'm just kind of walking around, and it is, just running. My character's just running. And I'm just looking around, like, I might as well see what's here. Let's see what's going on. Take in the sights. Listen to the music. The music is beautiful. The city of Dornegal is just gorgeous. It looks like Dunmorrow, kind of on the other side of Ironforge, where you've got a few things sticking out of the rock and a few little portal tunnel things. It looks like that, but absolutely elevated, freshened up, and just spread big time. Like this is just carved into the sides of the mountains. Stone everywhere, blending the architected stone into the natural stone with tons of flowers and leaves and trees and things mixed in. So it's absolutely architected to that point and landscaped, and all that looks fabulous. Everything just looks lively. Great banners everywhere. Kind of walking to the Oath Gate, which looks like the eastern entrance. It is. And as you get closer, you just realize you're walking onto a giant vista. Okay, not quite as high as I thought, but it's just a giant staircase into the city. A couple staircases, actually, a couple different layers. And as you get to the edge of the staircases, oh, it's just gorgeous. It just opens up the view, very Dragonflighty. And what I mean by that is they clearly, in Dragonflight, kind of Ornaran Plains and some other areas, just open the world up. It's like Mulgore, but more interesting. Mulgore is one of my favorite zones, hands down. I love the music. I love the mesas and the rolling grasslands, but it needs a glow up, as everyone says. It's pretty old, pretty tired looking from a graphics point of view. This looks like a Mulgore, absolutely modernized. A different landscape. I'm not saying it looks like Mulgore, but it has that openness and that just endlessness. And it's one thing to be stuck in a giant pile of trees. If you're in a forested zone, that's all well and good. Here, it just feels like you could go in every direction, and it's not just one zone for doing stuff crammed into another zone. One of the things I think about WoW sometimes is I wish they would take everything and just expand it by like 30%, just to give some of those old zones some breathing space, and you're not, walking 17 seconds to the next thing you need to do, the next little quest hub. This feels like there's a lot of room. It feels more real worldy. And as I am walking around, I'm noticing that trade chat is moving. Maybe the world is back. Maybe whatever little hiccup we've been on is over. Let's see if I can. No, I can't. Still can't transform. I can't mount. Which means, the game is still in a incorrect state. Skybox, pretty good. The clouds look super wispy, not just this generic blob. And I'm not currently playing on max definition. I think I have the slider set to like 7 or something. Yeah, oh wow. And the sun, wow. The sun is there, and I've noticed in many zones in the past, the sun doesn't even really appear. It's just kind of bright somewhere. Here, if you look at the sun, it brightens up, and then if you move your camera away, it goes into your peripheral vision, so it's just like a big circle. But you stare right into it. It just absolutely grows brighter and brighter. Fantastic. Lazy river down below us. I was about to say, I should be recording this music, but I actually am. Recording game sounds on one recorder and microphone on another. Trying to be efficient here. Yeah, I mean, it probably helps that empty feeling of the world that there's literally no one here. And so, for all my want of a solo game, that's sort of what this is. Now, I wonder if this is just me, because Trade Chat isn't just bitching about small indie company, game's broken, dead game. Although you get a figure, today is the 24th. Oh, yeah, I just got disconnected. I was going to say, today's the 24th. It is not full access. This is still early access period. So it would be pretty funny for people to get in there and say, ooh, small indie company, this sucks, when, you know, they paid at least, what, $90? And a bunch of bucks extra to get early access. So, you know, I think you could kind of call them out on that. But no, people are just talking, chatting. All right, let's see if I can get back in. Small indie company. Jeez. You know how much I paid for this early access? It felt like a treat. I'm not going to lie. It was kind of cool to just be meandering around and nothing happening. I had actually turned my microphone off, and I was just going to do some questing when I realized the state the game was in. And so I thought, oh, you know, I need to talk about this. All right, so we're back in, and this is interesting. Characters aren't moving. NPCs are moving. Oh, here we go. Oh, this is so funny. People are slowly starting to come to life. Yep. You every now and then see one more frozen character sort of shake it off, start walking, and then fly away or start moving. My jeweled onyx panther guy just realized it, and he just stopped spinning in circles and took off. Somebody's shooting what looks like flaming missiles somewhere. This is funny. This is a funny, unintended little adventure. So thanks, Blizz. That was kind of fun. The carts, NPC carts, are moving around again. Everyone kind of, you know, they're done their break. People are back to crowding mailboxes and actually looking at mail. There was a crowd around a mailbox that was just frozen in time. Uh-oh. Oh. I don't know what happened. That person must have logged out or something. They were running in place, and I thought, oh no, the game just froze again. But then they disappeared. So, no, we seem to be back in action. And quest givers have quests again. Which means, hey, I should probably go find Magni. There's a cool... Before I kind of get back to playing, there's this little section. I haven't explored it yet, but it's basically where I want to be. Around Brand. Sorry, I need to talk to Brand, not Magni. It's clearly the kind of Delver's headquarters, because on the outside they have the Delver's dirigible, which is the very customizable mount that you're going to get doing delves. There are, I guess, various appearances and unlocks. It's kind of like the Dragonflight dragon riding rostrum where you can change the scales to fins and the spots to stripes and, you know, all the things you could do with your dragon mounts. This is like a, you know, gnome goblin engineering marvel. I think it looks a little more gnome than goblin, but, you know, an engineering marvel that you can absolutely customize and make look very different. The possibilities are, you know, in some ways I think the possibilities are a little bit more meaningful than the dragon stuff. I felt like there were too many options in the dragon mounts that were so negligible. Like, change these 3 spines to 3 fins. But it's a whole different appearance if you want to change those 2 spines on each side to fins, or it got so I lost interest. I didn't just say, ooh, this is what I want my blue Drake thing to look like. I need to go find all those appearances. This, and that might be me, that might just be me, but this bit of engineering, this seems more tangible, more interesting. Do I want it to look like a helicopter? Do I want it to look like a plane? Do I want this engine, that engine? Propellers in the front, propellers on the sides, big, small, lights, not lights. Like, all of these things feel like actual options. More meaningful options. I don't know. And again, maybe that's just my choice of style, but it seems pretty cool. And I believe, I'm not sure, I believe all of that is from doing delves. I don't think you get those appearances from elsewhere, but I could be wrong. And then moving inside, there's this open sort of area, moving inside from that dirigible display, the Delver's dirigible. This is clearly what is the Delver's headquarters, but what's the Explorers League? Is it the Explorers League? Oh, and the Reliquary. So it's the combination. Reno Jackson is here. Reliquary researchers. Bran is here.
Lords of forgotten knowledge.
There we go. Now he wants to actually talk to me. Let's click. What are the Delves and the Delver's headquarters? There, yeah. Exploring things all over, of course. Well, like I said, that was kind of a fun adventure when we were alone in the world. Ooh, Elise Starseeker. Oh, someone just whacked me with something. Stampeding roar. Hey, that's nice. Now I can move faster in a place I'm not actually moving anywhere. Elise.
Ishnu Daldiev.
Ishnu Daldiev, she says. Elise is a Hearthstone character, as is Reno Jackson. So Hearthstone making contributions to the wider game
Stars guide
in this fun little corner of the Warcraft universe. Let's see what Reno has to say.
All's quiet, Commander.
Oh, all right.
See you later.
All right, so no crazy voice lines from Reno Jackson.
Commander.
He sounds basically like
For the Alliance.
Matthias Shaw, but that's okay. See what Bran has to say.
The answers are here. I can feel it.
I'm not about to leave the Isle of Dorne unexplored. I have a reputation to uphold.
All right, we are back in the tavern to kind of finish off this episode. One topic left, and I didn't get to a raid of the month, a farming raid of the month this month, just because my game time is so limited, and absolutely all of it was devoted to running in the remix and leveling in the pre-patch. But I did have a raid topic to talk about, and that is this idea of raid story mode. And I thought I knew what it was, and I thought I was hearing some confusion out among content creators and posts, and basically there was a lot of praise for raid story level that I thought was a little bit misplaced. And so I did more research, and now I'm almost more confused, I'm really not sure what this feature is going to be. So I think we're going to have to wait a little bit. But Nerebar Palace, the first raid of the War Within, will feature the introduction of this new way to experience the story that happens to be written inside of the raids. It will launch with LFR Wing 2 on September 17th. So not the first week of LFR, but that second week, story level, not story mode, but story level will be launched. And as I said, I've heard very different things, and some of them I know are incorrect, but also I've just heard things that can't all be correct. So I don't know. A couple things I do know. It is going to allow the person playing to fight the last boss of the raid, the final boss. It is going to have trimmed down mechanics for that boss. So you're going to get that boss fight and you're going to get a hint of what it's like to fight them, but the mechanics will be much, much simpler. Instead, story level focuses on the narrative aspects of the raid. And that's, I think, the phrase that's a little bit mysterious, because does that mean it's going to tell you the story of the whole raid? Is it going to walk through some of the other bosses? You're just not going to be able to fight them? Is it focused only on the last boss? It's not really clear. What is clear is this is not follower raids. If follower dungeons are the chance for solo players or groups of up to 5 to get in on a very easy mode to do all the things basically in a painless way and get very low gear, this isn't it. If I don't know how many bosses are in Nerebar Palace, I think it's 8. If there are 8 bosses, story level does not get you to 8 bosses, it gets you to 1. It might show you some of the others, that's what I'm still not sure of, but it does not let you fight 8 bosses. This is a different thing. It is for, last I heard, groups of 1 to 10 players, but the group is humans. It does not fill out your 10 players with AI companions. So this is, again, this is not you need 5 people to do a certain amount of damage, or in this case, you need 10 people to do a certain amount of damage. And if you need AI, great, they'll include it. That's not what's going on here. This is really tourist mode. This is just showing you what's going on, and then you get to step in and do a little bit of that fight with the last boss. As I've said before in other places and whenever I kind of get the chance now, wherever this actually lands, it is still just a half step. I really hope it's a good step. Clearly, this is what we're going to get for the first raid of the War Within, but it is a half step towards follower raids, and I do hope we get all the way there. So keep pushing, Blizz. I hope this feature works out. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I've paid for the whole thing. I'd really like to get in, not in LFR. I really want to see follower raids. Hashtag follower raids. All right. Let's get out of here. It looks like our time in the queue is up for this month. A lot of content this month. It's been fantastic. It's time for me to get out of this inn and solve all of Freywald Village's problems. That is the only way we are going to defeat Xal'atath. All the music you hear is the work of the amazing people at Blizzard. And finally, we are hearing the War Within music with the sounds of the Isle of Dorn mixed in throughout this episode. Another massive W for the WoW composers. Hashtag don't play muted. Come on. The intro and outro music is by my real friends in the doom metal band Ogre. Get it and listen loud. I want to thank everyone who made this episode possible. My lovely and supportive wife, the good folks over at Podbean who host Solo Q, and Phoebe, thanks for everything. And my supporting patrons, Andrew, Righteous Bandy, and That Sky Guy. If you want to support the show, even in a small way, you can find the show on Patreon at patreon.com/soloqwow. There are tiers of various levels of support, including free, if you want to just get your hand in the air and say that you appreciate the podcast. Thank you to Max, Eddie, and Tim for doing just that. Knowing that people actually like this really does help me keep coming back to the microphone. Subscribe to the podcast at your podcast feed of choice. And if you can leave a 5-star rating with Apple or Spotify, that will help the show grow and get in front of more eyeballs and earbuds. Even better is a written review on Apple Podcasts, and as I find them, I will share them here on the show. You can contact me at soloqwow, SOLOQUEUEWOW @gmail.com, and on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. I even posted to Blue Sky recently. Was it seen? I don't know. Maybe we'll never know. Send your questions, feedback, stories, whatever about your own solo play, and we'll try and get them on. Have fun leveling. Enjoy the war within. Whatever parts of the game you focus on, I hope you have a great launch and leveling experience. We can talk about all of it in September, the next time we hop into the solo queue. Hey, I'll see you out there. On the show today, I don't know. I already forgot.